Hello, you're listening to an SSFD Network podcast from the School of Social and Family Dynamics at Arizona State University.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Brougham, and today we're going to do a podcast, and I'd like to welcome you to seeing how the Stanford School and the Pat Tillman Veterans Center have joined together a working relationship for the benefit of the ASU community, understanding military families, our veterans, and how we interlink with one another. Today, we're going to take a look at the military family and the veterans. We're going to gain some perspectives on individuals that are part of our ASU community. And we really wanted to help bring insight and future discussion. Hi, I'm Jennifer Brougham. I'm faculty with the T. Denny Stanford School of Social and Family Dynamics. And I teach a class that deals with looking at military families, and joining us is someone who has very specific knowledge about all areas. Jeff?
All right. Thanks, Jennifer. Hello, everybody. My name is Jeff Guimarin. I'm the executive director of the Pat Tillman Veterans Center here at Arizona State University. And I am a retired Air Force colonel who served 25 years, and going to have some good conversation today because I dragged my family around for all that time. And I think that's an important aspect of understanding the experience, and also had a couple of command tours to where I got to see that impact across the lives of many. So looking forward to it. Back to you, Jennifer.
Okay, thank you. Well, you know, Jeff, there was an old adage in the Army. I don't know about the Air Force and the rest of the services, but in the Army, it always said if they wanted you to have a wife, they would have issued you one. So fortunately, that doesn't exist anymore. It was a joke, you know, and everybody was ha, 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 but there was a reality to it back then. But fortunately, the services have become much more understanding of the sacrifice that military families go through, and that it's recognized now. So that, you know, I think that's very, very important. But the mission hasn't changed. The mission and the responsibility of a military person serving in the military is primary. And there's a huge responsibility, and there's a readiness that needs to be there. We have seen over the past years, deployments extend their times. We have seen that veterans that have experienced issues during the time they are serving have come home, and it's become part of their family now, even though they're not active duty anymore. So one of the things that I'm hoping you're going to share with us is, as you said, you are executive director of the Pat Tillman Center and are in Air Force colonel, retired now, but you're also a husband, a father, and you had to balance all of these things. So I guess basically, how'd you do
it? I don't know. It just kind of happens. Yeah. So that is a great question, is really finding that balance. And you hit on a couple, I think, very important points with respect of how the military has, in its past and its traditions, viewed the family life, the addition of a spouse, and then the sustainment of that throughout the years, and how we've changed as a culture has been dramatic. I mean, just in the 25 years I was in, I could see significant shifts in how we approached the family orientation, the cultural aspects of it, what impact that had on the unit, its readiness, its mission, the people, and I think probably the best way to kind of put all this is ultimately the military operates successfully based on the people that it has and whether they're able to do their job. And so when you give them more structure and stability to do that, you're going to have more success. And I think that's been kind of the mindset of the more modern American military over the last maybe 2 to 3 decades than probably it was in earlier stages of its history. So I think that's an important kind of aspect to understand is the evolution of things. And so I was very fortunate having come into the military and the Air Force at a time where that shift was moving in the direction of let's find more stability for the airmen, the troops, the personnel. And one way to do that is to encourage kind of that family unity. And I think it's not for everybody, but it's for the majority. It is what you'll typically see. And I had to laugh too at you bringing up the adage of if the military had wanted to give you a spouse, they would have issued one. I think that's an important thing to understand in terms of how the military does training. And so when you come into basic training or you come into officer training, they want to break you down to the bare kind of foundation, right? And then build you back up. And so they're going to put in your mind that you don't need to do or think anything else and worry about anything else other than turn into this soldier, this Marine, this sailor, this airman, or whatever it is. And so I think a lot of it may have been somewhat tongue in cheek when it was stated by some nasty drill sergeants or anybody else like that that was trying to push that on the new troops. But I think it's just a formulation of, hey, we gotta break you down, and then we're gonna build you back up, and then we'll issue you the family, and then you can go on with your success. So I think all that's important to just kind of have contextually to understand. And then to specifically answer the question you have about how do you do it? How do you find the balance? That's hard. The biggest challenge I think initially for me, which many go through, and I think you probably saw it as well, is my wife. She had her college degree. She was a biologist, still is a biologist by trade, and so the challenge there was when we moved from place to place. Most of these places we went, there was nothing there that she could do in that respect of that career field. We found a couple of times where we hit the jackpot with it, but moving every 2.5 to 3 years with limited options, that was tough. And so I tried to look at, hey, how can I shape where I go and find that balance to allow her those opportunities, but it was hit and miss. And so that made things challenging for sure. And then when you have kids, drop that on top of it. And now it's even more complex because now you're shifting a larger group of people around the world to different places. And you have to try to figure out how to accommodate multiple persons and their wants and their desires. And there's not a lot of flexibility for that. And so I don't know that the right answer is that we ever balance it. I think it's more of we just find what we can do the best we can with what situation we're presented. And in some cases that means a heck of a lot of sacrifice from the family members because they're just not going to see that balance until 25 years later. Now, when I retire, they have more opportunities and they can have some influence in that. But it's a challenge. And I'd be curious to kind of get your perspective in the same sense is, what was your experience and how did you strive to find balance within that context as well?
Well, I think, I agree. Balance is always going to be tricky, but I'm not sure that that's not true for every family, that you're always trying to balance out everyone's needs. However, our experience was in the older military system because of the fact that the draft was still in existence.
Yeah.
I'm part of the Vietnam group of military families. And so there was different attitudes among, the individuals within the military themselves. I mean, some people were wanting to serve their country. Some people were wanting to make it a career. And then there were other people that were there because they got a notice in the mail that said you will show up. And so I think, and to be honest, I don't think I really understood what was going to be required of a military family. And I think that that's something that I strive to hope that continues to grow and improve, that a person moving into a marriage with someone in the military or both in the military, they really understand what's required. So I went in as a young, naive second lieutenant's wife, and I learned quickly that second lieutenants are meaningless. So, and you totally depend on the graciousness of your master sergeant. So I learned that. And so a lot for me was trial by error. And there were a lot more traditions that were, you were expected to go to the commander's house on New Year's Day and, so some of the stuff. But I think that once you get your footing, I think it's fine between, the husband and wife, but then put children in the mix. And, it's fine until you have to worry about school and activities. And you're right, then you have so many other things to consider, in certain ages, they have to leave a boyfriend, and then you're the worst parents in the world. And so all of that goes in. So it's really difficult. But I do think that if you understand this, and I learned my understanding with growing pains, but I think we're so much, I think the military is far more sensitive now to the family. I look around and I look at the younger individuals within the military and the wives, and it just seems that everybody has a better grasp of the situation. And I'm pretty sure that some of that comes from being a volunteer military. Now, I think that probably moving to that was probably a very wise decision on someone's part because of the fact that people want to be there. Yep. And there is no better support system in the world, and you can't convince me there's no better support system than your other military families. And they are there through thick and thin. You can let them know you have an issue 25 years later, and they're there to support you. So, and I think that's something that is important for people to understand, the camaraderie and the community that exists in a military culture.
Yep. Yeah, so I couldn't agree more. The all volunteer force was definitely a tremendous paradigm shift, and I think that culture and that approach, because when you want to be somewhere, you're bought in a little bit more, of course, and you come in a little bit more eyes wide open, knowing what to expect. And it's interesting, your comment about you didn't know what to expect. I think we have gotten better at that. I think there's a lot more education. There's a lot more lessons learned. You can't even turn around without seeing something on the internet that helps, kind of set that understanding, offer that knowledge, that insight, that experience. So it's out there and it's available to be more informative. Also, each of the military branches on all their installations, some better than others. I'm not going to rat out any of the branches here, but some better than others know what they need to put in place, and they do, in terms of programmatics, resources, making that available. A lot of people take advantage of that, and they take advantage of it pretty early, to help kind of stabilize the wobbly wheels initially when you first come in. And when I say you, it's the family. If you are bringing a family, there's a different transition that you do initially that you experienced versus a younger troop, or even myself. I was not married when I was a brand new second lieutenant. I came in single, and I didn't get married until I was a mid-level captain. So I had time to develop and figure out what I was going to do, as contrasted to a situation like you coming in with your husband, and you all were brand new, and so it had I think a different impact. For me, my wife was an Air Force brat, so both her parents were active duty for their whole careers, 25 to 30 years. So she already knew what she was getting into, and that absolutely helped the transitions, the understanding, the cultural integration. But I will tell you, during my command times, and the units I was in, you could see the stark contrast between those that had some of that foundation and understanding and knowledge and want to utilize those resources, in direct contrast to those that were brand new. So a young troop comes in some cases already married, maybe even with a small kid or two, and the sheer sense of overwhelming and unknown and just feel like they're floating in space was dramatic. And so we could, in the unit, recognize that at the unit level, and that's critical too, that you have people in the right place, like a first sergeant, like an NCO of a work center, even those second lieutenants. I would drill it into them early, as these are the things that you as leaders need to look out for. And so you could very quickly pick up on those instances where somebody might be struggling with something. And again, that's when the scaffolding gets put in place. That's when the structure gets put in place, and we monitor it. But it's demanding. That takes a lot of time and energy to do that. But I believe the military gets that now, is that if you don't do that, you're going to directly impact your readiness, which directly impacts your ability to conduct your mission. And if you don't do that whole tooth to tail analysis and understand that if there's not that foundation and that good structure with the individual, the person, the family unit, that it's going to have negative impacts across the board for you. So I feel very confident the military understands that for the most part. The only times I see them kind of veer away from that is when it's personality driven by somebody that just doesn't get that. And there are a lot fewer of them than there are the ones that do get it. And that's a good thing, I think.
Right. I think not only the military gets it, but I think the university gets it as well, because, I am part of the school that looks at family and human development. And I was really supported and encouraged when I wanted to develop the course looking at military families. And, I think that they felt that that was incredibly important. If you're looking at families, then you need to look at individual areas, and this is an important area. And so I think that the university communities are understanding it as well. And I think that's great. But one of the things that I do want to, you are the appropriate person to talk with on this issue, is that we know that some veterans bring home some issues, and it goes to their family. And now they're no longer active duty, and they are still have to deal with certain things. And some of them are trying to move on with their lives, and they come to the university and they walk into our classrooms. And I think, I think ASU has superior faculty. So, but I'm not sure that we always understand the differences between who are our campus students and our vets, because our vets are the same age as some of our campus students chronologically. They aren't experienced. The vets bring some experiences that, that have really either made them grow up quickly or have scarred them, or there's, a myriad of things. So I think I'd like to use this opportunity to maybe talk a little bit about how the ASU, they're definitely members of the ASU community. How can we be supportive to them as their roles change and they transition?
Yeah, so I appreciate you asking that, and I'll echo what you just said. Is ASU gets it, I think, across the board. We are a very strong, supportive university for both military and veteran type issues, and it's evident in the population that we have attending here, which is a little over 10,500 now, military connected, veteran and dependents. And those dependent numbers have been increasing over the last couple of years, as well as a lot of the military members or the veteran member who served are given those benefits to a dependent, be it a child or even a spouse in that case. One of the things that we do in the Pat Tillman Veterans Center is we help connect the dots. And I wish that I had all the resources that, at my fingertips to say, hey, let's get them counseling, let's get them financial aid advice, let's get them help with a job placement. We want to do all those things, but we don't own them within the center. And we rely on the ASU enterprises writ large to do a lot of that by us just kind of facilitating and playing like a unit first sergeant role, right? From a military unit, is let's help student get to this point and find and seek the advice and counseling and assistance they need. So we'll serve in that capacity and continue to do both on campus and online population, which is a little over 7,000 of that 10,000 plus number. So huge numbers in the online space, and they're facing the same circumstances. Interesting age demographics. You brought that up, and actually our average age of our military and veteran population, not including dependents, is 31 and a half years old. So it's significantly older than that 18 to 22 year range. A big chunk of our new first year students are typically, like you described, that 22, 23, 24-year-old who just came out of the military after 4 or 5 years. And so we find that they have a much different experience than that older, more mature group of the 31 and a half or so average that typically has a family, may already have a job, has different financial obligations on their shoulders to address, and so forth. So we try to kind of take it as a case-by-case basis with each of them, is how can we line them up with the support that they need and build the success scaffolding around them to get them through successfully. And the main goal is not to get the degree, it's to get a good job after you've done all that. So we try to keep them aligned to that target set. But one thing I do want to throw out there, and I know I've spoken with you before, is our center does what's called Proving Grounds. It's a training curriculum that we do, that we offer to staff, faculty across ASU, and also to other organizations outside of the university. And what that tightly packaged kind of training and education curriculum does is Sean Bonzif and Michelle Leposki provide it to the group that they're engaging with, and they explain to them, hey, here's a veteran's perspective. Here's what they experience. Here's what they're looking for when they come into an institution of higher education. Here are the struggles and the challenges that they face when they do that. And to the point of kind of family, we've learned some things over the last 3 or 4 years too, to understand better how do we set up and organize and educate people on the implications and the connections to the family issues that we're talking about. So we don't just focus on the student anymore. We're looking at how do we expand that understanding and knowledge, and know that when you're dealing with a student veteran, there are ramifications around that student quite often that impact directly family, because immediate family. It's not like a 18 or 19-year-old who's been shipped off from Michigan, right? And their family's all back there, and yeah, they have issues and that separation anxiety. But I'm talking about a 31 year old individual who's got 3 kids and a spouse, and they're trying to juggle all these things. How do we figure out what we need to structure our success scaffolding around them differently than we do that 23-year-old who comes out of the Marines and is single? So big differences. And that's why we need a center like Pat Tillman Veterans Center in place to understand that, to connect the dots to the resources that are available, and then tweak the programmatics as we go for things that change, because we are a direct reflection of the military and where it's at now, active duty guard reserve, projected into the veteran space. And so we need to know what's happening while they're in and serving, and what they're bringing to us, and then how to deal with it, how to accommodate, how to set them up for success. So I say again, ASU does an excellent job in that, and that rarely, if ever, do we come across anybody that doesn't want to just jump in full bore and support that. And it's evident too by the program that you run, and the participation you get, and the interest you get, and the support it gets from the college and other academia elements within the university. So I can't say enough good things about that.
Oh, well, thank you. And I know with the Pat Tillman Veterans Center since it started. And so, and I've worked with Michelle and Sean, and I think the insight that you can gain from having experienced anything with the center is amazing. And certainly, I think it's helped me in dealing with understanding some of the needs that the students that come to me that are veterans. I know in my class, my favorite is when we have a mixture of students that don't know military at all, children of military, and then some veterans, and then ROTC cadets. It's amazing to watch them dialogue. I must admit, it's probably one of the few groups I never have a problem getting discussions going, because everyone has a perspective, especially the people that I love, the ones that are engaged to the ROTC cadets, and they come and, so what am I getting into?
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's so important, that those up and coming leaders, be it the cadets and the midshipmen that have not yet commissioned but are about to become those second lieutenants and those ensigns, they need to hear this stuff. They need to have that experience passed on to them. They need to really figure that out and be successful when they hit the ground running, because that will set them apart from their peers if they have that understanding and that perspective. And we can't give them that experience directly, but we can certainly convey it. And that's, a critical element of higher ed, is how can those of us that have been there and done that pass on to them the lessons learned that they can take and be successful with. And I will tell you, I see that across the board. I did the time in ROTC and helped build and mentor those future leaders. I saw in my peers at other ROTC detachments that they were focusing on that as well, and doing their best to integrate kind of that understanding of the family unit, how you're going to grow it, how you're going to build and support it. Whether you are jumping into that or not yet, you need to have awareness, because those around you and those troops that are working for you are going to have those needs and wants and things to support them. So the more you know, the better off you are. And
absolutely,
what better way to do it than to get some insight from a program like you've got.
And I would like for us to close out with talking just a little bit about our children briefly. One, I want to let everyone know that my 3 children survived being military children, and they grew up to be resilient, productive adults. And so, and I have a grandson who's thinking about doing the military after college, so we haven't scared him off. That's good. And so, but mine have already gone through it. So I'm going to let you close out, Jeff, with talking about your daughters, who, by the way, this is just a sideline, they're awfully cute.
Of course they are, but thank you. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I did want to quickly kind of throw that topic in as well. Is I was contemplating the other day, and it was just a couple of days ago, it popped in my brain as what an experience our kids have had, and that they've been yes, they've had the issue of they've been dragged around the world and many places, but I was thinking about my 2 girls. They're 11 and 14, and they've lived in 5 or 6 states. They've lived overseas. They've traveled places that many Americans as older adults don't even dream about. I mean, and even contemplate. So the experience set that they've been given really drives to your point about the resilience that you're seeing in your children who are grown up and having successful lives. Mine still have some things to go through, and they will, and they'll jump into it with both feet. But it's a lot of it's predicated on that experience that they've had in the, being a part of my family and my experience in the military. That just is tough to compare, and many people don't get it. So we take the good with the bad in that case, and that yeah, there are those times, and fortunately I haven't had that yet, where oldest daughter says, you're ripping me apart from my friends and my boyfriend and all that stuff.
It's coming.
Too early for that. Well, at least now I'm retired and I don't have to worry about that, yanking them around the place. But they relished the moves. They enjoyed the new scenery. It was a great foundation for them. So I that's one thing I would leave, with the folks that are listening to this and considering those kinds of futures, is there are some great benefits to it that you just cannot find in other places. It just, unless you're foreign service and in the State Department or some other kind of federal entity that does a lot of kind of international engagement and things, you may get those experiences with your kids. But the military offers something that is just tough to match. But there's always a price, as
Right.
we've been talking about. So I can't encourage it enough, to be quite honest, though.
Well, I'm hoping our conversation today helped to give some insight to anyone that has chosen to watch it. And I appreciate the good work of the Pat Tillman Center and hope you'll continue to work with me. And I couldn't agree more. I feel very blessed that we work for the educational institution we work for that really look at diversity and really do look at inclusiveness. And these are more than words. And for all the students that are watching, please know that you are at an amazing university. They really do put into place their beliefs and philosophies. And I think we can see it exemplified by the courses. And one of them is looking at the military. And I'll give you the last words, Jeff. I don't usually do that, but I'm going to.
I'm not prepared because I knew that.
Because you're not used to me doing it.
No, I appreciate the time to speak on this very important and timely topics. And it's great to have the synergy with your program, with your school and your college, and with the Pat Tillman Veterans Center. And it's a great benefit to our students, and not only our veteran and military population, but others that need to learn it. So happy to support.
Okay, great. Hope everyone has a good day. See, I did get the last one.
All right, that's a wrap.
Here at the School of Social and Family Dynamics, we recognize that the land where we host this podcast at Arizona State University belongs to the Maricopa and Pima peoples. Connect with us and get access to all of our podcasts by visiting thesanfordschool.asu.edu/podcast, where you will also find links to all of our social media channels.